Hi everyone, I'm Drew, that's Allison, and we're Sex Ed Queeries.
Before we get into our episode, we want to take a moment to acknowledge the killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Tony McDade in the hands of police brutality.
Black Lives Matter, and we support any steps taken to make people listen to that statement.
Remember everyone, Pride started as a riot against police brutality led by Black trans women and butch lesbians. So the history that led to us being able to have this channel and these videos is inextricably tied to the bravery and perseverance of Black lives and Black activists. And refusing to, stand with the Black Lives Matter movement today would be incredibly hypocritical.
To help the protesters that have been arrested, we're linking an Atlanta-based bail fund in the description below. If you have the means, please donate whatever you can. Allison is also going to lead us in the Mourner's Kaddish, a Jewish prayer in memory of the deceased through perseverance and refusal to lose faith. If you don't feel comfortable participating, go ahead and skip forward a minute or so. Allison, take it away.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah, v'yalma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam lomei omaya. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yitromam v'yinaseh, v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dikudsha v'reichu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechamata, dam yuran v'yama v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabbanim shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mamav, v'yaseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen.
Thank you, Allison. So, McKenzie Wren is an independent consultant helping groups and organizations have important conversations about the things that matter, especially topics surrounding race and LGBTQ+ inclusion. She serves as the program coordinator with Sojourn and was one of the initiators of the Sex Ed Queeries program. So we're very excited to have her here today. So McKenzie, could you just tell us a little bit more about yourself? Anything that we may have left out right there?
Gosh, this is talking about this stuff is my passion, and talking about sex as my passion. And I've had opportunity to be in public health in a variety of ways, mostly on the fringes, talking about things like abortion and contraception and sex education through an LGBTQ+ lens. So those are the things that I really like to talk about, and those are the things that are important for today. And the only other fun thing is that I also love my electric bike. So there you go.
Points to Hufflepuff. Good environmental love. So we know that you worked for Planned Parenthood. You also worked for the Feminist Women's Health Center, and you worked as a midwife. So how did that work inform your understanding for the need of sex ed?
Yeah. So I started with Feminist Women's Health Center when I was in my 20s, and then from there went to become a midwife, and then to Planned Parenthood, and then back to Feminist Women's Health Center. And the entire time, in the last episode, y'all talked to your friends about their sex education horror stories, right? So those were mine as well. Like, I didn't learn anything from anybody. And then in my experience as a midwife, recognizing that people were getting pregnant and really not understanding sometimes how it happened, and really not understanding what was going on with their bodies. And then with Planned Parenthood, I worked in El Paso, working with, just about everybody. I was the education director. And so I went into prisons, and I went into 5th and 6th grade classes of all boys. And I talked to girls, and I talked to mixed classes. And this was before Planned Parenthood was as politicized as it is now. So, but what I recognized is how uncomfortable people are about talking about this stuff, right? My mom didn't. And when my friends' children started talking to me, when I was a young adult, I knew just how important it was to be able to hold space for people to just ask the questions, right? So one of my sister midwives, her son talked to me about sex education. He was a young, I think he was probably 16, and he didn't have anybody to talk to. And so he knew that I was somebody who you could talk to. And from that place, the idea of the more that we can talk about sex, the more that we can talk about intimacy and relationships and self-love and all of the weird stuff that goes around with having a body, the better equipped we will all be to navigate our changing bodies and realities. So it all comes together, right? It all, and what I love about Sex Ed Queeries is that it all, being here with you all today, it all comes together because public health, right? We know that public health is about creating community wellness. And if people have the tools to make healthy decisions about their bodies and feel empowered to do that, and are also mitigating unwanted pregnancies and stopping spread of disease, like all those things come into play through a program like Sex Ed Queeries.
Awesome. So when you worked for Planned Parenthood, what was the sort of material that you were responsible for teaching?
So the basics, I pulled out the condoms and I pulled out the dental dams and I pulled out the pills and the Depo-Provera, and I showed them all and I showed them how to use it. And what was interesting is during my time in El Paso, I also, not sure if it was El Paso, it doesn't matter. No, it was here in Clarkston, actually. In some of the conversations, one of my friends actually had gotten a model of a vagina that had experienced genital mutilation, right? And so part of the work with Feminist Women's Health Center was to help practitioners know how to treat and serve women who had experienced genital mutilation, right? So that's part of this work as well. And that was when I was working with Refugee Women's Network, working with health promoters, because at that point in Atlanta, practitioners didn't know what to do. And so that was a little bit later on, but the idea that when you talk about sex education, you have to talk about the whole thing, right? Our bodies are made differently. We are intersex people. We are people who have had experiences with genital mutilation. We are experiences with people who are, our bodies are in transition, right? And we have to be able to talk about and name all of those experiences. My time with Planned Parenthood now seems very naive in a way, because it was a long time ago. And it was more limited, and I realize how much the field has changed in response, for which I'm very grateful.
So what was a typical day like for you when you worked for these organizations?
So there really was no typical day. The one thing that was typical is I often came out just going, oh my God, because I was young, and I'm going to go talk about sex with incarcerated men who have had way more kinds of different experiences than I could ever imagine. And I'm going to show off this condom and help them know how to use it. And it was ridiculous, right? So, or I was going to go talk to a group of squirmy 7th grade boys who were unbelievably disrespectful. Yeah. So it was incredibly difficult, and also so wonderful, because I also had an opportunity to connect with young people who cared so deeply. We started a peer education program, and so we began training peer educators they were people who could talk to their peers about contraception in particular. And we actually did some theater around that, and we did some street theater around that as well. So the days were just all over the map. I had a lot of freedom. And so did a lot of different kinds of creative things.
So this one's kind of a two-parter. What was one of the hardest moments of your work that you can think of that comes to mind right now? And what was one of the best moments where you were particularly proud of yourself or your students?
Yeah. So I think some of the proudest moments are those individual moments of knowing that somebody felt validated, and that they were normal. Like, we worry about our normalcy, right? Are we normal? Are we okay? And oftentimes we don't have anybody to ask. And so there was a couple of instances of that affirmation and validation of what you are experiencing is normal and you are okay. So that was kind of an ongoing theme. And I have this connected thread that is Planned Parenthood to midwifery to working in herbalism to working in abortion care. Like, it's this thread of being with many, many, many different types of people who identify all over the map. And including working with, at that point, a person who was born intersex and then was assigned female, and then felt more connected to identifying as male. Sorry, my language. And so working with him to honor his experiences and to honor some of the trauma that he had gone through in being assigned female at birth with concomitant surgeries, and helping him to come into his power, if you will, was some of that incredible work, and the work of centering into you're okay exactly as you are and as you want to express yourself and to love your body. And part of what we were working on was also just sex education. As I said, it's more than contraception. It's this whole experience of having a body and living in it and loving yourself. So that experience was also humbling for me, and one of the most powerful experiences that I have had. Some of the more difficult days were the working with people who had experienced different other kinds of trauma, and where I couldn't help, and some of the ridicule and some of the protesters, and dealing with those kinds of pushback from very, very narrow, oftentimes religious backgrounds, right? Of being criticized and harassed because people didn't believe in people's right to choose or access to sex education. And certainly here in Georgia, for a long time, it's been abstinence only. And that's ridiculous. Abstinence only education does not work. What works is equipping people with the skills and the tools they need.
Do I lack the evidence? You say there's no offense. So many assume you see. Who is he and who is she? Just met and you think I'm someone else. Well, I'm trying to do me so I feel myself. Assumptions got me so annoyed. I'm not a girl, I'm not a boy.